The city had a coherent and, in its own terms, rational response to plague, a kind of emergency plan activated when an epidemic seemed imminent, in the form of plague orders. These derived from the Privy Council originally and were informed by medical thinking, including continental best practice, but they were imposed and enforced by the city authorities. Officials were appointed and instructed. Regulations were issued on the quarantining of infected persons and houses and how they should be supported. Regulations on burial, on the disposal of household goods, on keeping the environment clean, on getting rid of dangerous or disorderly elements. Even if the orders weren't fully observed, as Pepys documents, both in his observations and through his own behaviour, because he's often out after the official curfew of 9 o'clock, they provided a framework of expectation and they delineated the hierarchy of responsibility. And in addition to the plague orders, the mayor and aldermen, meeting through the summer, issued a stream of other precepts concerning the expansion of accommodation in the pest house, the appointment of physicians and surgeons to serve the public, the closure of grammar and other schools, especially dancing and fencing schools, the provision of further burial space as the city's churchyards filled up. Civic leaders, for the most part, stayed at their posts, and social order was largely maintained. The smaller cogs in the machine got on with their work. Local systems continued to work remarkably well, even if under increasing strain, as the scale of the epidemic rose and human and financial resources were more and more stretched. The plague orders and the corporation's other activities give us a good idea of official thinking about the epidemiology of the disease. It's clear that they believed that infection was passed from person to person, and that those who'd had contact with the diseased, or actually with the dead, might themselves infect others, either before or without succumbing to the disease themselves. So quarantining the sick, or the potentially sick, was therefore vital. Assemblies of people, whether for burials or more secular enjoyments, were dangerous and must be curbed. The clothing and bedding of the sick were a lingering potential source of infection, and they must be treated with care or preferably destroyed. Certainly they mustn't be allowed to circulate as before, because of course London has a big second-hand clothing and bedding market. Dirt and rubbish in the streets, cats and dogs, beggars and disorderly behaviour were all seen as likely sources of infection, requiring to be cleansed or controlled.